Across the galaxy, fear is pretty much a universal constant. It's a language spoken by every species that's ever stared into the void and felt hopelessly small. There are creatures out there whose entire existence is a monument to terror, living weapons bred for nothing but pure aggression. So, what happens when the galaxy's most terrifying creation meets the one species that seems to break the universe's most basic rules? What happens when a creature that bites anything that moves, Mum? It bites anything that moves, the trainer warned. His voice was a low thrum of vibrating chitinous plates, a sound that was equal parts pride and sheer terror. Behind a shimmering energy field, a whirlwind of claws and fury spun. But the human Ambassador Thorn just smiled. Eats a creature that just smiles? The room was a sterile, white hemisphere, the kind of place the Galactic Confederacy builds to watch things it doesn't trust. And nobody trusted Specimen 734. The trainer, a Xylosian named Kalen, gestured with one of his 4 spindly arms toward the containment cell. His multifaceted eyes, which usually swirled with the calm, analytical light of a master xenobiologist, were tight with tension. We call it the Gore Fang, Kalen explained, his mandibles clicking nervously. Its homeworld is a nightmare. To survive there, a species has to be the absolute pinnacle of lethality. The Gore Fang is that pinnacle. He pulled up a holographic display, and it was a highlight reel of terror. A Gorian battle beast, famous for its 4-inch thick armored hide, torn to shreds in seconds. A squad of security drones, their plasteel bodies ripped apart like paper. A whole delegation from the logical Voltan species had to be sedated after watching a feeding session, their minds simply unable to compute the sheer, chaotic violence. Its bite force can snap starship-grade alloys, Kalen said grimly. Its claws are tipped with a neurotoxin that can paralyze a herd of grazers in under a minute. And its reflexes, well, most species can't even see the strike before it's too late. For 3 years, it has injured every handler and instilled a deep, primal fear in every being that's seen it. By every metric we have, it's the perfect predator. Ambassador Thorn listened patiently, hands clasped casually behind his back. He was a plain-looking figure against the alien grandeur of the facility, wearing a simple dark blue uniform without any of the usual medals. He seemed soft. By galactic standards, he was completely unassuming. No exoskeleton, no claws, just 2 forward-facing eyes that held a strange, unreadable calm. Fascinating, Thorn said, his voice perfectly even. A beautiful animal. Kalen's mandibles parted in an expression of pure disbelief. Beautiful? Ambassador, with all due respect, I don't think you understand the situation. This isn't an animal to be admired. It's a living weapon. It knows nothing but aggression. It bites anything that moves. Thorn's smile widened, just a fraction. It wasn't a grin of arrogance, but something else entirely. Something Kalen's logical, survival-driven species had no frame of reference for. Then, the human said softly, "Maybe we should open the door." Panic ripped through the observation chamber. The other 2 dignitaries, a towering Galaxian and a floating gelatinous being, recoiled. "Are you insane, human?" The Galaxian boomed. Kalen frantically worked his console. "Ambassador, that's out of the question. The containment field is the only thing keeping us safe."
"Deactivating it would be suicide."
Thorn turned his calm gaze from the beast to the trainer. "Kalen, you've spent 3 years trying to control it with force, technology, and distance. You've treated it like a monster, so it's shown you a monster. Has it ever occurred to you to try anything else?" Before Kalen could list the hundreds of safety protocols the human was violating, Thorn walked over to a secondary control panel. His fingers, shockingly nimble, danced over the interface. A klaxon began to blare. "Unauthorized protocol override," a synthesized voice announced. "Containment field deactivation in 10 seconds. Kalen froze, his forearms locked in helpless horror. This couldn't be happening. Humans were known for being unpredictable, emotional, even reckless. It made them frustrating allies and terrifying enemies. But this was beyond reckless. This was a complete defiance of instinct. 9, 8. Inside the cell, the Gorfang seemed to sense the change. It stopped its frantic pacing, its 8 obsidian eyes fixing on the shimmering barrier. Its entire body coiled like a spring of pure fury. Bioluminescent patterns on its spines flashed a violent, threatening red. 3, 2, 1. The energy field vanished with a low hiss. The klaxon went silent. For a moment, absolute stillness. The only sound was the shallow, terrified breathing of the onlookers. The Gorfang stood at the edge of its former prison, its massive head low, a guttural growl rumbling in its chest. Its eyes were locked on the closest moving thing, Ambassador Thorn. The Galaxian dignitary was already halfway to the emergency exit. But the human didn't run. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't even tense up. Instead, Thorn took a slow, deliberate step forward, keeping his hands open and visible. The Gorfang's growl deepened, its fangs now fully displayed, dripping with neurotoxin. It took a stalking step forward, matching the human. "That's it," Thorn murmured, his voice so soft it was almost a hum. It was a tone Kalen had never heard in this room. It had no fear in it. "You're scared." "It's all right. I get it." Then he did something so suicidally foolish Kalen almost cried out. He lowered himself to one knee. Making yourself smaller was a universal invitation to be destroyed. A sign of total submission. The Gorfang paused. Its bioluminescence flickered from red to a curious, uncertain yellow-green. It was still a monster, but a hint of confusion had entered its eyes. This soft creature wasn't acting like prey. It wasn't acting like a rival. It wasn't acting like anything it had ever encountered. Thorn extended one hand, palm down, and held it perfectly still. Seconds stretched into an eternity. The Gorfang looked at the hand, then at the human's face. It took another tentative step, its massive head lowering to sniff the offered fingers. And then, the impossible happened. With a slowness that defied its very nature, the Gorfang nudged its monstrous head against Thorn's hand. The human didn't flinch. His fingers gently began to scratch the coarse hide right behind where an ear might be on an earth creature. A new sound vibrated through the chamber. It wasn't a growl or a hiss. It was a deep, resonating rumble from the creature's chest. The Gorfang's spines retracted, its light softening to a calm, steady blue. Incredibly, it leaned into the human's touch, closing all 8 of its eyes in what could only be contentment. The silence in the observation chamber was no longer about tension. It was about pure, jaw-dropping shock. The Galaxian stood frozen at the door, his mouth hanging open. Kalen just stared, his analytical mind failing to process the data. "Impossible," he whispered. The word felt small, useless. This was a violation of biology itself. Down on the floor, Thorn chuckled softly. He kept scratching the Gorfang's head, and the creature's purring intensified. It finally folded its 6 legs and rested its head near the human's lap like some kind of giant armored dog. "You see?" Thorn called out, his voice casual. "He's not so bad. He just needed a good scratch behind the ears." Kalen felt his entire understanding of the universe shift. His whole life he had seen the galaxy through a lens of logic. Predator and prey, threat and response. Fear was a rational reaction to danger. But this human, he operated on a completely different axis. It wasn't that he defied fear. It was as if the concept was simply irrelevant to him in this context. He saw a monster, and his first thought wasn't to run or fight, but to offer comfort. This wasn't a lack of survival instinct. It was something far more potent. It was a curiosity so profound it bordered on the divine, a willingness to engage with the unknown on a level other species couldn't even comprehend. Humans didn't just challenge the unknown. They sought to understand it, to befriend it, to scratch its head. Kalen looked from the now docile Gorfang, the galaxy's perfect predator, to the soft-bodied human who had tamed it with a smile. And for the first time, he felt a new kind of fear. It wasn't the primal terror the Gorfang inspired. It was a deeper, more intellectual dread. The most dangerous thing in this room was not the creature with claws and venom. It was the one who saw an engine of death and thought, "Friend." It was the one who could rewrite the fundamental rules of nature with a simple act of empathy. The galaxy had spent eons classifying threats by strength and aggression, and they had made a terrible, terrible miscalculation. They had failed to account for the utter terrifying unpredictability of humans. Kalen finally got it. It wasn't that humans were fearless. It was that their idea of fear was so alien, so selective, it might as well have been a superpower. The rest of the galaxy was afraid of monsters. Humans, it seemed, were only afraid of running out of monsters to befriend. What do you think is humanity's most underestimated trait? Is it our resilience, our empathy, or, as Kalen discovered, our complete and utter disregard for the rules? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this glimpse into the strange nature of humanity, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from the void.